Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of The Push with Nick and KP. I'm KP, and today we have a NXT recap going through everything that took place across the course of last night's version of NXT. This would be the 2nd of December edition and being the go-home show before going into NXT Deadline coming up this coming Saturday. So, the plan is we go into everything that took place across the course of the night, break everything down, and discuss all the happenings that took place. So, how about we get things started then with our very first bit of action across the course of the evening, and we would see an NXT Women's Iron Survivor Summit hosted by the general manager Ava. This will see all the competitors. So we've got Soruka, we've got Lola Vice, we've got Kalani Jordan, we've got Kendall Gray, and we've also got Jordan Grace in the mix. Soruka opens up first, basically referring to getting advice from Ethan Page last week. She says that, she's been told that she's a future world champion material, and that sort of made her think that maybe it is about time that she made that a reality. Her first step to achieving that is to win the Iron Survivor Challenge, which she highlights straight away. Jordan Grace, she puts in, saying that it's not that simple, really, and that no woman in the ring can actually stop her from achieving her goal, which is to do the exact same thing as to what Soul says she was going to achieve herself. Lola then weighs in, saying that Cena picked her because no matter how many times she's been screwed in the past, she still believes in herself, and she still is getting these opportunities to win the NXT Women's Championship. Kendall Gray, she weighs in her sense, basically highlighting that she's the only champion currently in the ring, and that she can handle the pressure of these big moments like what Deadline will offer. We then see Kalani Jordan weighing in, saying how Kendall is actually now swimming with sharks now that she's in here in NXT and not in Evolve, and that Jordan and Lola just simply aren't good enough for the Women's Championship. She says the Iron Survivor match is made especially for her because the same descriptions that could be said about that matchup can be described exactly in the same sense as how you're describing her herself. She says that everybody else in the match are simply stand-ins, but she is the standout. We then see Fatal Influence arrive, JT Jane, Fallon Henley, and Lady Reed. And as they're walking down to the ring, JT Jane has a fair bit to say on the mic, basically saying that now she's the champion again, she won't let anybody ruin her title reign. She diminishes each woman one by one in the ring, basically just taking them down a peg each. And that sees then Kalani and Jordan getting into a bit of a scrap after comments made about Kalani's recent loss of her TNA Knockouts Championship. Her and Jordan have a little bit of back and forth, and then a small brawl does take place between every single woman in the ring, and obviously Fatal Influence as well, part of that. And that ends in Soruka, Lola Vice, and Kendall Gray standing tall in the ring, having cleared everybody else from the interactions. After this, we go into our first match of the night, which would see Thea Hale go one-on-one with Ariana Grace. And we would have a couple of outside interferences, happening here in this one. We'd have Channing Stacks Lorenzo supporting Ariana Grace. We'd also have Joe Hendry supporting Thea Hale. And after coming together between Stacks and Hendry at ringside, Joe hits a standing ovation on Stacks on the apron, and that distracts Grace for just enough time, opening up an opportunity for Thea Hale to lock in the Kimura lock and to get the win via submission. So, no real surprises here in this one. Don't remember the last time Ariana Grace actually won a singles match on NXT. Thea Hale is somebody who's currently got a little bit of a wind up her sails and is trying to get a little bit of momentum going on here. And this win for her is, just a step in the right direction. We're going to our next contest after that. That would be a one-on-one matchup between Josh Briggs and Tavion Heights. And this was a pretty physical contest. Both men just really using their size and power to take advantage of that. And yeah, they sort of... They brought a decent side out of each other, to be fair. This is a really fun competitive contest, really back and forth, and yeah, like I said, very, very physical. We see a point in the contest, actually, where Josh Briggs, he gets drove through a barricade at ringside by Tavion Heights. It's probably about midway through the match, I would say, at this point. It's, like I say, the intensity just sort of carries onto ringside here, and they do go through that barricade. Later on, we see Briggs actually ripping off the chain from his neck, and he tries to sort of go to use it, but before he can, Heights actually takes it away from him. The referee removes it from the ring, and as he's doing so, Heights hits his belly to belly, but he's so close to the ropes that Josh Briggs is able to quickly just get his foot onto the bottom rope, and that would see the cover being broken, the referee noticing. And we see one clothesline / lariat later, and that'll be enough for Josh Briggs to pick up the victory here in this match against Tavion Heights. So does this rivalry come to an end here? I'm not entirely certain if it does. Maybe it does. We'll have to wait and see. But Josh Briggs with a very big, significant win here after a very physical contest, 1-on-1 with Tavion Heights. We would then see Izzy, Dame, and the rest of the culling stood in the ring. They would be ready to cut a promo here. She'd make her way down to the ring at first, and then, she would take to a microphone. She would say the fans are like Tatum Paxley. You know, they don't really know how to be alone. She says that she gave up trying to save Tatum Paxley before saying that she didn't actually betray her at all, and that she corrected a mistake, originally thinking that Paxley was an equal to herself. Izzy calls Tatum selfish and stubborn before questioning the timing of Paxley winning the NXT Women's Championship, being after that, she had her own influence on her, and then it was the time where she won that title. She says she took the title away from Tatum because simply she could, and because it was what she was owed. Dame issues a challenge to Tatum Paxley, a one-on-one match with herself at Deadline, which then sees Tatum appear on the Tron moments later. She would be sat alone where the culling usually sits, sort of like the backstage vignettes that we do see from time to time, and Dame calls Tatum Paxley pathetic and predictable before suggesting that she should come down to the ring unless she's just simply too scared. Tatum admits that she is scared because she doesn't know what she'll do without Izzy's hand on her shoulder, and that at Deadline she'll make Dame feel her pain. That would be the end of that little segment there between the two ladies. And I think the intensity sort of rose a little bit of a notch there after the sort of interaction between the two of them going into their now one-on-one match at NXT Deadline. So looking forward to that contest. Should be quite fascinating for sure. Izzy's putting on some great work at the moment, and Tatum's got a very interesting character arc to go down at this time. So looking forward to seeing these two butt heads at NXT Deadline. So we're going to go into our second half here of NXT, and that would see the match that sort of stemmed from earlier on at the start of the night. Soruka, Kendall Gray, and Lola Vice taking on Fatal Influence, Fallon Henley, Lainey Reed, and JC Jane. So after a pretty fun matchup here, I think there's a lot going on generally throughout the contest. We see bits of everybody here involved. There's some really nice sequences. You got all 6 women just sort of like hitting really nice individual moves. In sort of like a tandem sequence type thing. Starts from the beginning and goes straight to the very end of the sequence. We see Sol Ruka hitting a Soul Snatcher on JC Jane, and that would allow Sol to pick up the victory here on behalf of her and her team. But it's some really nice moves in this one, especially from Kendall Gray. It's like a wheelbarrow into a Shades of Grey, which is her finishing maneuver. That especially was quite a really fun spot. And just generally speaking, the chemistry between all 6 women here just really sort of like fit quite nicely. We see after the matchup, though, as Soruka, Kendall Gray, and Lola Vice are outside of the ring, sort of like taking in their victory, we see Zarya just randomly appear out of nowhere, and she spears Kendall Gray. So it kind of is made to look like she's trying to spear not Kendall, but Soruka, because Sol actually does move out the way and doesn't get hit by the spear, and instead Kendall is the fodder in the situation and does get caught by it. So it's quite interesting that, and even commentary say, was that actually aimed for Kendall? I think it might have been aimed for Soruka instead. I think that might have been Corey Graves saying it. So obviously they noticed, and that's obviously something that they want to bring up. So quite an interesting sort of a situation there from Zarya. A little bit of the aggression post match, and was that spear meant for Soruka? That's a big question there. Coming up after that, we would see a tag team match between OTM and Chase U, and I had my criticisms of Chase U over, quite a long time now. Ever since the original Chase U broke up, and we saw that sort of grouping of the faction of the squad. I don't really think it's ever hit the same, and I don't think it really is now either. But what I will say is that this is by far and wide their best match since reforming as a group. They actually put on a pretty decent back and forth contest here against OTM, and for a fair bit of the middle sort of part of the matchup, they were actually in control for a large part. So they did look a lot better than I think they have done in sort of recent months, which is quite nice to see some progression, because honestly at one point I was thinking this Chase U might just be better just to get rid of them. What was the point in bringing them back here and sort of like, making this like 2.0 sort of Chase U system? But I guess maybe if they can show signs of potential like this, maybe they can keep that going, and they can be consistent with it. But at the end of the day, it is a win for OTM. They weather the storm of that mid sort of part of the matchup. And they utilise their power and strength, tag team cohesion, and being the more experienced team, they do get the victory in the end by laying out Chase U. So, yeah, not a bad tag team match there between both teams. Like I said, a bit of an improvement for Chase U, which is nice to see. We see at one point Ethan Page, who had recently sort of been in matches over in AAA with the likes of his tag team partner Chelsea Green, mixed tag team champions there, with the likes of Mr. Iguana. And that would sort of spiral into a backstage sort of in the parking lot segment here at NXT, where we see Ethan Page sort of like looking to leave the arena. He gets into his car. Ava's there. She's sort of questioning what he's up to. And he says that he's leaving because, clearly there's nothing planned for him in this show. Ava says, well, actually, we do, have something to talk about because you're the North American champion. You haven't defended your title since Halloween Havoc. So, what's going to be done about this? Ethan says something along the lines of, well, there's clearly nobody here that's ready to challenge me. So what can I do? And Ava says, actually, no, we do have somebody in mind, that is up for challenging you. And as Ethan Page is in his car looking to drive away, we see Layeska sort of like a creep around the shoulder of Ethan Page. Ethan notices it and obviously quickly just darts out the car, and it makes for a little bit of a comical moment because Ethan's obviously a little bit struck up by the situation, and Mr. Iguana gets into the driver's seat of the car and simply just says, I'll challenge you before driving away. So yeah, it looks like we've got a challenger for Ethan Page's North American Championship. That's going to be Mr. Iguana, but excited for that matchup. We've seen them obviously feuding over the AAA mixed tag team titles, so now we get that North American Championship match instead. And let's go on to more deadline situations here, because we've got the men's Iron Survivor Challenge participants, 4 of them anyway, teaming up to take on Dark State, which includes the other competitor in that Iron Survivor Challenge match. So we got Miles Bourne, Leon Slater, Javon Evans, and Joe Hendry taking on Dark State, which obviously includes Dion Lennox being the 5th member of the matchup. So, interesting stipulation going into this contest. Basically, if Dark State win, then Dion Lennox, he gets to choose his entry number for the Iron Survivor Challenge match. Whereas the other 4 men of the of that matchup, being Miles Bourne, Leon Slater, Javon Evans, and Joe Hendry, if they were to pick up the victory, whoever would be the man to get the pin in this matchup would actually be the one to choose their number, their entry number in that Iron Survivor Challenge matchup. So quite an interesting dynamic here, and it made for quite an interesting end sequence as well. I'll talk about that a bit more in a minute. And yeah, this one's a really fun matchup, to be fair. Dark State are very impressive in this 4 versus 4. They tend to normally be in these sort of matches because they are a group, they are a unit. They're sort of they're very used to each other. They've got a lot of chemistry, and just generally speaking, they do tend to work quite well in these environments, as you'd expect. And they show that in this contest. They're quite dominant for a large part of it, probably a good 70-75% of the matchup, generally speaking, except for like a few bits here and there in that 75%. And yeah, Dark State looking very, very good in this contest for the most part. We see a bit towards the end where, I guess you could say the face team, I guess you could say in this case. And they do sort of like get back into the swing of things. We get Leon Slater getting into the matchup, bringing some much needed energy and pace. And then John Evans just sort of doubles down on that, continues that pace, and that sort of leads into the very final moments. We see a couple of tags coming on in, because obviously the 4 men, they know that they need to get the pin here if they're going to have an advantage going into that Iron Survivor Challenge match. So Javon Evans is the legal man, and he gets tagged. Well, he gets tagged by Leon Slater, so he's now the legal man. As Leon's looking to capitalize and to, put this one away, we then see Miles Bourne go for a tag, and as Leon sort of confusingly sort of looking over his shoulder, he still continues what he's doing, hits his 450 swanton, which is just absolutely incredible. Yeah, we then go for Miles Bourne in the ring, who hits his Bourne again, and that would be the win for the team of faces. So yeah, quite interesting there, the dynamic there sort of led into the last few moments. Joe Hendry had sort of brawled out at this point with one of the members of Dark State, and yeah, he was sort of a non-factor in the finish here, really. But yeah, when it comes to the other 3 men, quite interesting there, and it was Miles in the end with the pin. And literally, as soon as the match is over, we go straight to the NXT Championship contract signing, which is sort of a very brief backstage moment, very dark, dim room, with Ava, Obafemi, and obviously the champion Ricky Saints. So both men have their say going into their matchup coming up at NXT Deadline. Honestly, the segment is probably at most like 90 seconds or so. it's really not a very long drawn out segment here. So they say something very, very brief to each other, basically about how they're going to, be the man on top come the end. All that sort of yada yada you'd expect from the situation. And then once both men sign the contract, Ava takes charge of the situation and basically says that for the very first time in NXT PLE history, the men's NXT Championship match at Deadline will open the show. So yeah, quite a crazy announcement there. To think that, obviously we've had NXT for so long now, and the NXT Men's Championship match has never opened the show. This being the first time, there's a first time for everything, and that will be NXT Deadline. So excited for it. What a way to kick things off on that show. Really excited for that to take place. And maybe that'll just set the pace for the rest of the night, going into obviously all the contests that we'll be seeing throughout the course of the evening. So yeah, looking forward to it. Should be a great matchup, and what a way to kick things off. So, generally speaking here, NXT, a lot going on. As you'd probably expect for a go-home show, everything's sort of focusing on NXT Deadline, and generally speaking, everything moving in the right direction here. So, yeah, just lots of things going on, and just a way to really just keep things ticking along and keeping the interest high going into that event. So, yeah, there's loads of stuff happening here, progressions all across the shop, across most of the matches here at Deadline, and just sort of like brings that sort of like added interest into the event, which is quite nice. For me personally, I gave this NXT an 8.5 out of 10. We see go home shows most of the time not really offering too much, but generally speaking, this one was quite different. It just had a level of intrigue throughout the entire show. So yeah, I was glad for that, and definitely quite an enjoyable show for me personally speaking. But for now, that has been everything regarding this episode of The Push with Nick and KP and our NXT recap. If you guys have enjoyed hearing this one, then please consider hitting a like on the video, subscribing to our channel, and keeping up with future releases coming out very, very soon. Also, let us know in the comments what you're thinking, what you thought about this episode of NXT, whether you're looking forward to Deadline, and just generally speaking, anything that's on your mind. We'd love to hear it. Whether it's good, bad, and different, pop it on down. But for now, this has been The Push with Nick and KP. We'll see you all again soon. Take it easy, and goodbye for now.